I'm Laura. I'm the Chief Talent Development Officer for the Milwaukee Tech Coalition, and the coalition has really been formed by a number of corporate, nonprofit organizations that all came together because they really just wanted to improve the tech ecosystem in the greater Milwaukee region. And mostly my role is in the K-20 space and reskilling space. And the thing that I hope that you leave today's session with is that there's a space for you, there's a spot for you, there's a place, there's a calling in the tech ecosystem to be for each of you that are on the call. And so I am just so excited to be joined by all of these amazing panelists. They all have a lot of really great information to share with you. So to start off, I just want to be able to introduce each of our panelists. I'm going to have them introduce themselves by telling you what their role is at their company and just a really quick summary of how they got into tech, because I think you'll find that all of our pathways into tech are quite different. So let's start with Danielle.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Bartow, and I've been in the recruiting side of the Milwaukee tech community for around 6 years. I would definitely fit into the category of people who found their career in technology by chance, but I absolutely love what I do. I actually graduated from UW-Milwaukee with a degree in anthropology, so I clearly had my future planned out. But when you started looking for career paths, I realized I wanted to get something that would allow me to learn continuously, meet people, help others, and that led me to recruiting. So I spent 4 years at Tech Systems, a recruiting agency with a focus on app dev and data recruiting. And since then, I've spent just over the last year and a half working as a talent acquisition specialist for Concurrency, just expanding my reach deeper into all the tech. So my day-to-day is engaging with highly sought-after talent, networking with the tech community, and then getting people engaged in our mission, and then just helping people enhance their careers. So it's incredibly rewarding, and I'm glad I get the opportunity to meet people from all walks of life.
Thanks, Danielle. How about you, Marie?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. My name is Marie Olmsted. I am the Early Career Programming and Development Manager at Rockwell Automation. In my role, I really focus on the onboarding and employee experience, retention and conversion of our student and early talent, really along with career progression development and acceleration of our early talent, including our early career tech talent. So, how I got into tech, maybe a little similar to Danielle. I guess I'm what you would call tech adjacent, right? It's critical that I'm aware of the industry technology and tech talent needs, really in order to do my job effectively as an HR professional. But I was really attracted to Rockwell Automation because of their reputation as an industry leader in industrial automation, as well as being a highly ethical company and one that's really strongly positioned as a good corporate citizen. So thank you, Laura. I'll pass it on to the next.
Drew?
Hi, my name is Drew Kjell. I am a software engineering manager with Northwestern Mutual. I'm different than Danielle and Marie in that I played video games as a kid and always loved computers. I think the first video game I played was King's Quest back on like IBM PS1, way back in the day. So always loved playing with video games. I was like, I'm going to be a programmer. I remember telling my dad I never wanted to be a web programmer because that wasn't real programming. And ironically, that's all I've done in my career. Go figure. But I went to Kjell and was software focused the entire time. So I like solving problems, and that's how I got into tech, because that's all we do all day. But I'm an outlier in that I knew early on that this is where I wanted to go.
Tiffany?
Hi, I'm Tiffany Dillon. I am a director in the cloud space at GE Healthcare, and I got into tech fairly early on as well from high school. So I loved science and math, and I went to a school that focused on the trades, so plumbing, electrical engineering, all those spaces, and I didn't want to do those. But my science teacher suggested that I stay with math and science, but I didn't want to. So he offered classes that were electives on the side that he taught. And he said, why don't you take my programming class? And that's how I took my first coding class, which I'm about to date myself, was Pascal. So after that, I took every programming class he offered and decided that's what I would major in when I went to college.
That's awesome. I know my story is a little bit different. I also was starting with programming mostly because my counselor said you're good in math, and I hear there's these things called computers you should look into. So it's been a long time, but my first language was PL1 and basic. And I didn't know what programming was when I started. I knew I wanted a business degree. I went to UW Whitewater, Management of Computer Systems, and loved it. And I think for me, the reason why tech was so great was I sort of think in flowcharts, and I like things in boxes. And I like to know that there's a solution that is provable. And that was what brought me into tech. And I just had a really great career at Northwestern Mutual, and then moved into the nonprofit and education space, and then higher education, and then to this role. So there's a lot of different, which I hope you're hearing, is the wide variety of different pathways that you can get into tech, including those things that are tech adjacent or tech enabled. So we're going to talk more about that next. So the next really thing we want to just sort of dive into is how tech is really enabling new solutions. And I want Marie to sort of talk about that from her perspective. How has tech enabled new solutions at your industry, as well as what kind of new problems are being solved?
Thank you. So, many of you know or may not know that, Rockwell Automation is a global leader in industrial automation, really committed to the next gen of smart manufacturing. So through products and software, we help customers be more productive by bringing together products and information. And at Rockwell, we call that the connected enterprise. And it connects people, process, and technology. So what does that even mean? What's the connected enterprise? And will I answer Laura's question? Yes, I will. So let me take it down just a step to kind of the personal level. So many of us or our families have the ability to connect a lot of the aspects of our home to our devices or our phones. For instance, we can adjust the temperature of our home through remote access to our thermostat. But now, not only do we have the ability to adjust the temperature, but we can get an alert when, for instance, it's time to change the furnace filter. And so when we get this alert, that doesn't mean that our furnace is broken or that it's shut down or stopped running in the middle of January. It's a reminder that in order for it to run optimally, it's time for me to take action to prevent it from breaking down. So similarly, through the connected enterprise, a plant manager can get an alert on a mobile device if a particular area or section of their manufacturing line is in danger of shutting down or failing. It's predictive. It's telling him or her that action needs to be taken to keep the machine running. And why is that important? Because if manufacturing actually fails, production stops. They stop producing the item or the product that they're making. And this consequence, the consequence of this downtime has monetary impacts for the company, but more importantly, there are real consequences for the consumer. So think no further than 2020. Obviously, there is an enormous global surge to produce PPE, like masks. So if the manufacturing equipment producing masks failed, it really had a direct impact on the healthcare workers or the other health officials or each of us who relied on them. And so that's really what the connected enterprise is really about, and that's the space that Rockwell plays in. But it doesn't just stop when a new solution is developed or launched, because that in turn will lead to new needs and new solutions and new problems to solve. So, we have all of these, we have the connected enterprise, all of these devices and systems that are connected, and now it really enhanced the need for security. So through this connectivity, we need to ensure that our customers' data is secure and that it can't be breached. So we need cybersecurity engineers who can do threat analysis. We need engineers in DevSecOps to ensure that security is built into our solutions. And how do we get that information? It's through data. So then we need data scientists and data analysts that can provide insight from the information we're gathering. So I think you can see where I'm going. New solutions create new challenges, which demands a need for new solutions. So while tech enables us to solve problems, it's always going to come with new ones that need to be solved. And so I think that is why, the Milwaukee Tech Hub exists. That's why you hear so often about the demand or the push for STEM education in our schools. It's really to set individuals up to be successful in tech careers, because there's just going to be more needs and more challenges that tech can help us solve.
Tiffany, did you have anything you wanted to add from a healthcare perspective?
Nice to unmute. Just to kind of talk about when it comes to production, you know, I'm in a healthcare company and we normally start off ages ago with those huge machines, you know, ultrasound, MRIs. Now we're down to the point where they can actually look at images on a handheld device, on their mobile phone, things where they can quickly diagnose and look at data. So data has been one of those things that have become huge and quite pivotal. Well, now you have careers that can focus on data. They have machines that focus on just slicing data and providing analysis and in some cases, some solutions. So I think tech has provided ways for us to get a lot of data from a lot of places and share it. I think that's the biggest piece when you're sharing medical data, especially with research, because that's huge in the medical field is research, and sharing information across the country, across the world is huge. Being able to slice up information that they have to come up with new solutions, whether it's another way of looking at ultrasound data or creating a small compact machine, you know, where you're slicing it and it's not so big and you're only going to focus on certain parts of the body. So I think she hit on a lot of where data has solved problems, but it also can create other problems. You know, how do you protect all of this data? Because it's privacy issues, you know, government, regulatory, that gets tied into that as well.
Yeah, and each of those aspects of what you're talking about is a different kind of role that maybe you may not even hear about in a computer science class or in any other kind of technology class. So it's really important to understand how tech is changing, to start thinking about what that might mean in terms of the classes you take or the experiences that you pursue. I know one of the things that's been really important to a lot of the students that I talk to is they understand that technology solves problems for industry. Many are more feeling like they want to solve problems that make a difference in the lives of people, even outside of maybe an industrial application. Andrew, do you have any examples that you can think of in terms of where tech is being used for social good?
Yeah, there's actually more than people recognize or realize. One I became aware of internally to Northwestern Mutual was when you put a bunch of problem solvers in a room together and get them to ask questions and see where they can help, crazy things can happen. So through personal connections, this group got created. I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong. They created a Slack channel with a terrible acronym, but it stands for a bunch of developers getting together and making something nice for others with volunteer time. And what happened was there was a request or a need to create visibility into crime data for the Milwaukee Rescue Mission. So a group of 5 engineers at Northwestern Mutual took their volunteer time, which is a fantastic perk that is provided to us to go and develop a solution that takes City of Milwaukee crime data and maps it on a Google map so that the rescue mission could see around their school location and in the different neighborhoods around the shelter what crime was happening and where, so that they could respond proactively to security needs. That's one tangible example. There's a group in Milwaukee I've heard of called Code for Milwaukee, which is a group of developers across organizations that get together and brainstorm and solve problems for people, because technology can enable so many different solutions and so much visibility into the data that Marie and Tiffany shared about. Like, we have data all over the place, and most of it's sitting there waiting for someone really with a great idea to go, hey, what would happen if? And see what happens.
That's awesome. And I think the other thing, Drew, is there's also an organization called Data You Can Use. And even the city of Milwaukee has created a public data source where you have access to data just publicly. And it's really cool when you put these different groups together with open data to be able to start asking those really compelling questions and just start thinking about what if. I think that's really, really powerful, and that's something anyone can do at any stage in their career. So thanks for sharing that. Danielle, did you have any other examples you wanted to share?
Absolutely. So Concurrency was recently, I guess a little bit of background, Concurrency is a professional services organization. So basically, if organizations don't have the resources or the expertise to do some larger scale projects, we actually come in and own those projects for them. So we were recently involved in an AI for Good initiative with a client of ours in the warehousing and imaging space. So they came to us in hopes that we could help them find a way to increase efficiency and the safety of their warehouse workers. We initially came in and decided the best option was to create a cognitive voice recognition system for their warehouse picking application and make it mobile. That being said, the project from there evolved in a really cool way. They asked us if we could tailor the solution to also successfully employ individuals with cognitive disabilities such as autism or Down syndrome. So that's exactly what we did. The end solution was essentially an interactive mobile application with facial and voice recognition that's used to help their employees navigate their workday. Users can speak back and forth to the application, use it for navigation of the warehouse, and confirmation of selecting the right item. But even past that, we had a lot of fun with it. We applied some gamification to get additional engagement with the users. Now the solution tells jokes, has conversations with the employees, and gives a sense of companionship even. I just think it's a really great example of technology being used to optimize the current traditional workforce, and also to tap into and empower an underrepresented but highly capable new workforce population. This project also had been awarded by Microsoft a U.S. Partner of the Year in Manufacturing and AI verticals. So it got a lot of recognition, which is awesome. And another cool thing about it is it's actually an open source project. So for anyone who knows what that means, it means it's free to the public to tap into. You know, you can utilize this in your own organization if it makes sense. You can add different aspects of your ideas of how to evolve it. It's kind of a collaborative piece that can be worked on from a bunch of different people. So yeah.
Awesome. I know, thanks for bringing up the diversity from the perspective of actually cognitive diversity. I think that that's been really interesting in tech, that there's a number of organizations that reach out to those that are on the spectrum and have identified that there's an amazing aptitude for tech. So I want to make sure that we, bring that forward again as well. If you have something that if somebody who's interested in more information on that, to reach out. It also is a good segue to really talking about sometimes the role of diversity in the way in which we obtain talent and the way in which we develop talent. I think there's a lot of students that have indicated that they don't feel as though they're included. They don't feel as though they're ready or that they're capable. And I guess I would wonder if Tiffany, if you could just comment a little bit on, the role of your organization in reaching out and why diversity is so important, and why how GE has really tried to reach out and make sure that people feel included and supported throughout their whole career.
So I'm fairly new at GE, but from what I've seen so far as diversity and inclusion and just making the employees feel a part of everything would be some of the reach outs that they're doing right now, some of the programs they're trying to work with to get diverse talent from non-traditional backgrounds. So non-computer science, non-IT majors as a background, to understand what skills can be applied, whether it's a boot camp, whether it's, on the job training, shadowing, to understand how can you incorporate different backgrounds, which gives you diverse backgrounds of thought to bring into your organization as far as innovation. So I think that is something fairly new to a lot of organizations, because traditionally we look for computer science or MIS degree or computer information systems backgrounds, or engineering background in general for IT positions. And recently, I think I heard someone mention how for front-end UX developers, they're looking at art students. So it's looking at different degrees and understanding how you can apply what they've learned from their knowledge to be able to do different IT positions.
Thanks for that. Marie, when you think about your early talent recruiting, what are some of the majors that you're recruiting from? What might you tell students who are thinking they might want to get into tech, but maybe aren't in a degree program that they feel is tech?
Yeah, I mean, there are in so many aspects at Rockwell, Automation, we do have, primarily your technologists, your engineering degrees, but similar to what Tiffany said is, one of our organizations did launch a partnership with the Art Institute in Milwaukee. And it was really in order to, when you think about a mechanical engineer designing a component, but bringing in the art aspect to how something could actually function properly. Also, not that long ago, in our strategic development or our advanced technology organization, you know, an intern was brought in who had a visual arts degree as well as a computer science degree. So really bringing in kind of those different schools of thought that can be brought together or combined with, you know, with your traditional engineering degree to really start thinking about things differently. You know, and also similarly, you know, at Rockwell, it's, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion is really foundational, you know, to who we are. And that includes the diversity of backgrounds and majors, but also, you know, the more traditional school of thought. You know, when you say diversity is good for business and inclusion is great for employee retention, and you know, we say that and we really believe that, because I think that the more diverse thoughts and opinions that you gather when you're trying to solve a problem, the better your solutions will be. Therefore, the more included employees will feel at work, the better they'll perform, you know, and you can see how that continues to evolve. And so we know through that inclusion where we create an environment where everyone can do their best work, and through engagement, we optimize their performance, and ultimately will, you know, it will optimize our bottom line and increase loyalty. You know, so we really want to have that culture where employees can and want to do their best work. And that means creating a sense of belonging, honoring differences, creating safe spaces for courageous conversations across differences. And again, those differences meaning so much with the various educational backgrounds, the various personal backgrounds, and bringing in people of all, you know, unique abilities and from unique paths.
Thank you. I think one of the things we've heard a lot about is that, you know, sometimes there's this perception of what tech is. And in high school, you know, sometimes it's equated to a computer science course. I want you to think back a little bit, Tiffany, just back to your high school days, and you think about some of the courses that you took and now how you think about tech. So what would you tell high school and college age students about how their coursework or their experiences relate to actually what tech actually is?
They're living the tech age compared to what I lived in high school and college. I had to use encyclopedias, not an internet search, to do research. I had an ugly, heavy computer where I programmed. I used floppy disks. They have handheld computers, basically, when you have your mobile phone with the apps and the things that you can do. If you think about applications, I'm really about to date myself, but how we can use Google Maps, we can use apps that give you directions to get to where you want to go. Well, when I needed to take a trip, I would call AAA and get the AAA trip packet. So I can have a physical set of printed out instructions on how to take my road trip, because I was not as familiar with a new way to, you know, visit some new place we were trying to go sightsee. So they're living tech. Everything I think in today's age is what's not tech, I guess, is what I would say. What job does not have tech? What area does not have tech integrated in some way, shape, or form?
I think that's a really important part, because even if, let's say you're going into a non-tech related field, you would think that you might want to have an understanding then about how tech is either enabling that or influencing that in some way, shape, or form. When you think about that, Danielle, if you were talking to, I know you have a really great presence with high schoolers at Concurrency. What are some of the things you tell them about, you know, hey, you might not be going into a tech, you know, major. What would you tell them about what they should try to learn about in terms of what they are trying to go into?
So it's kind of interesting, because if you think about the project that I just mentioned, you know, people just think of essentially the data scientists or the software engineers. Of course, they're invaluable contributors, but that's not the entire picture. So in ideal scenarios, most projects are made possible by a team of people that are either in tech, tech adjacent, tech fringe, whatever we want to call it, that help get through. So it could be a functional team of business analysts, project managers. It could be, you know, the recruiters that assemble the teams, sales alliances that help work with the client to understand how to engage with them. You know, anything from user experience, testing, implementation, configuration, adoption. I could go on and on. I would not even be scratching the surface. So you don't have to be a software developer to be in tech or tech adjacent. There's a lot of applications for technology within operations, engineering, business side, marketing, the people side, and even the creative. So it's really rare to find a job these days that isn't bringing some sort of you into the technical world, or again, at least on the very fringe.
Drew, what are your thoughts? I know you work a lot at Northwestern Mutual with high school and college students, and I know I've heard it a number of times, like, why do I need stats? Or they'll say, you know, I don't necessarily, you know, maybe I want to go into computer science, but I don't want to take a business class. Or I'm really interested in business, and they don't understand that every business is being affected by technology. So how do you talk to high school and college students now about that topic when you're guiding them?
I think Tiffany summed it up really well of what isn't tech. In one of my past lives, I would ask my, first class programmers, give me a job that doesn't depend on tech. Every single thing does, but the flip is true. So if I'm going into computer science and I think I'm going to be a programmer all day with, the music blaring and the lights turned off and Mountain Dew sitting on the side, like, that's not reality either, because I have to have those soft skills. I have to have that business. So all of those skills become interdependent. I know people who, started off in one track and ended up being lead developers. And I know people who thought, I'm going to program, and found out, what, I can program, but I'm really good at connecting dots, and went to architecture or went into business, business analysis and helping coordinate big initiatives. You don't know where you're going to go, and having a variety of skills, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at all of them, but being familiar with them and understanding how they can interact is really important.
I want to follow up on that a little bit. At Northwestern Mutual, there's some jobs that are no longer the same. They don't look anything like they looked 5 years ago. Can you just give an example of a job that wasn't necessarily a tech job before that has been transformed?
Well, I guess the example that comes to mind is what data science can do. So at Northwestern Mutual, we have life insurance products that people can purchase. And one of the things we do is we have to analyze their health information to see what does that mean. What it gets into a bunch of actuarial and statistics and all of the math that made my head hurt in college, that thankfully I don't do every day. But that used to be a manual in-person job. And we now have data scientists taking the data we collect electronically now and running it through a machine learning model and an algorithm that are helping us make decisions better and faster. So it's not just underwriting, it's not just a group of experts understanding what does it mean when they say this condition happened or that they had this thing come up in a medical exam. It's now taking that personal knowledge and putting it into a solution that can improve the client's experience. So typically people would take 3 weeks to underwrite something and to come with the decision. And in some cases, we can underwrite a policy now in less than 24 hours. So that non-tech job became nothing but tech to accelerate the business, to help our people be better efficient and focus on continuing to improve the areas that do still need that human touch. So it's a really interesting sort of merging of tech, as you will.
That's a really good point. So really, essentially, if you think about what you want to do in the future, if it is something that could eventually be automated, and it's not just machine automation, but just the thought process that goes in to decisions that used to be made by human beings, if that's something that can be automated, then that means that the job you're preparing for may be disrupted. And if that job is going to be disrupted, then you want to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to minimize the risk of you not learning what you need to learn. And so those are things that I think are really important when you think about electives and you think about even going into a major that you really like. Always think about, well, what else could I be doing to learn about how what I want to do someday might be affected by tech. Right down to, if I have, my daughter's a physical therapist and she had to choose a minor and she chose informatics. And she did that because she wants to run a clinic someday. If you run a clinic, you need to be able to understand how to use all of the different information systems that everybody talked about earlier about connecting all of this data. So you can still go into what you really want to go into, but understand how it's being affected or influenced by technology. Tiffany, do you have an example of somebody, like a role at your company that no longer looks the way it used to 5 years ago?
So in the past, and I think most companies can relate to this example, we had data centers, huge data centers all over the place. We're a global company, and even local companies, these physical buildings where you had the racks, you had your servers, you had all this storage, all this disk, the network cabling, all of this stuff that you paid for and that you had to manage to as far as cost year over year and pay for the space as well as the utility bill tied to it. Now we have the cloud. So you can utilize and do your computing with either Amazon, Google, Azure. All of those have really pivoted how people are working. And I was in a meeting last week, Friday, with some network guys that are really averse to some of that movement, that they don't trust the cloud because they were such hardcore data center, physical machine, let me touch it, let me install it. So I think it's a disruption. It's a good disruption, but it just depends on how you embrace it. So again, that's where you need to learn to embrace change, learn to continually learn, and to learn new technology because it didn't go away, so it's continuing.
That's a really good point. Marie, did you, when we think about the students that are on the call or that are listening, you know, some of them don't have access to technology courses. Can you think of anything that that your company is doing to provide access to expose students to tech that they may not be getting in their classes?
Well, I think, when I first joined Rockwell Automation, I was in our community relations organization in terms of our sponsorships and grants and investments in the community. And so I think, again, this speaking from Rockwell, a huge investment in FIRST robotics, which I know that many students do join through their schools, but there is opportunities to join FIRST teams at the various levels through institutions like Boys and Girls Club, of course, or other nonprofit organizations in the community. I think that, for individuals who are more into the kind of that programmer coding, developing mindset, there's web tools, things like HackerRank that they can tap into to really get online and solve some actual problems in teams or with others. HackerRank also interfaces with companies and organizations. So there's a lot out there that students can tap into if it's not offered in the classroom. I know that, all of these organizations on the call, Northwestern Mutual, GE, Concurrency, make similar investments, similar STEM investments in our schools and in our communities to try to make that more accessible.
Danielle, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I did want to kind of touch back to something that that Drew had mentioned earlier, and I think that one of the most understated things that I've seen over the years is the evolution and importance of understanding the business side of things in every single career. So you could be the most talented engineer in the world, but if you don't understand why you're building something, how it's going to be used, likely it's not going to have the impact that it's intended to. So just exposure in general. I mean, if you can get into anything business related, if you can learn something you didn't know before in a psychology course, really anything like that, kind of broaden your horizons, so you can in that space. And then I wanted to mention too, and kind of highlight that, at Concurrency, we work really closely with the Launch program. So essentially what they do is they are a high school internship program that provides an authentic experience for students to gain tech, problem solving, human and digital skills, and advanced relationships locally. So close that we actually share the same building. They're in our upstairs, so we, when we are in, we cross paths with them pretty frequently. So if you're a high school student in the area and you want to get more hands-on exposure to the professional world, definitely look into the Launch program and different programs like it.
Yeah, and you did cut out occasionally there, so I just want to restate that. So Launch is right now a collaboration between Wauwatosa School District and the Elmbrook School District. And they have many strands related to a lot of really amazing career paths and a lot of great business connections. And so, you know, if you Google launch, is that correct, Danielle? You'll be able to find it. But,
Launch Milwaukee, yeah.
That's right. But yeah, they do a beautiful, beautiful job, and they do accept students from other districts. And so that's just something that definitely we want to make sure that you know about. I wanted to talk a little bit, you know, you mentioned some about internships. And so Danielle was talking about Launch. Launch is a high school type of a high school mentorship internship kind of experience in that they are working on projects for companies. I could like a little bit of information, maybe Marie, you can start about how students secure internships, because I think it's a really, really important that you think about how you're gaining real life experience outside of school. But I also know that securing an internship is both an art and a science, and sometimes very challenging. And so I want to make sure that each of these early talent professionals can talk a little bit about best practice. When do you start? What do you need? How do you go about it? Marie, do you want to start?
Yeah, and you're right, Laura. That is a hard question because there's a lot of ways to approach it, and there's a lot of information we could give around how to approach or go about an internship. So I'm going to focus my answer on two things. Number one, which is timing is everything, and number two, it's going to be competitive, but don't let that deter you. So when I say timing is everything, I really mean timing is everything, and you have to plan ahead. So particularly when we're talking about, you know, university or internships for college or university age individuals. You know, when you start school, when you begin, go to campus maybe again someday, or virtually in the month of September, you know, many of your colleges and universities are already in September and October hosting their career fairs. And many companies, Rockwell included, and the others on this call, are actually using that fall career fair for a summer internship, which is what, 10 months from that very time. So, you know, you really want to be planning ahead already in your fall semester, thinking about what your plans are for next summer. If you wait till the spring career fairs, a lot of the offers have been extended already during the fall. So it's really important to, you know, think about the timing and plan ahead. And then the second part, when I say, you know, internships are competitive, but don't be afraid of that. I think there are a lot of ways to set yourself apart. You know, first, if possible, you know, get in front of companies at career fairs. Certainly, yes, in person, but I think we as organizations, certainly institutions of higher ed, this fall made a huge shift to being able to successfully launch virtual career fairs. So sign up for those, participate, talk to companies you don't recognize, get in front of somebody. And secondly, or kind of like 2B, utilize technology and tools. You know, explore, like I mentioned before, explore and participate in challenges on HackerRank. Once you're at university, set up a Handshake account. You know, Handshake is a free tool for university students seeking internships and jobs. And on the back end, us companies, us organizations have access to Handshake, and we can send out kind of targeted campaigns letting individuals know what type of roles, what type of talent, what type of experiences we're looking for our internship. So yes, the career fairs are important, but so are those technology and tools. And even LinkedIn, it is not too early as a university student to start setting up your LinkedIn profile. And finally, when you apply to an internship, you know, think about specifically the role that you're applying to, and make sure that, you know, your resume is positioned such that it is highlighting what relevant skills and experiences or class projects or coding languages you know, what platforms have you used, what clubs are you a part of, what leadership skills have you gained over you know, like I said, through work with clubs and groups. But again, try to arrange it and make it relevant for the role and the job that you're applying to. So obviously there's a lot more, but I wanted to try to limit it to those things. So be aware of timing, and it's competitive, but it's okay. You can set yourself apart.
Drew, do you have some more to add? I know you work a lot with those that are looking for internships.
One of the first things I would add is that Marie is spot on. We're actually reviewing intern resumes. I was reviewing some this morning for our summer internship. So if you're not applying today, start. one of the biggest things I will tell you on your resume is don't list your classes, list what you know. I don't understand what you learned in your programming 300 class, but if you tell me, that helps me. The other thing I will stress is the power of your story and why you want to join the organization and the role you want to join. I would also tell you that in Milwaukee, tech is in demand. There are a ton of roles. So just because you didn't get your first one or two, there's more out there. Keep applying. And the power of networking is real. There are countless meetups in Milwaukee that are meeting virtually and in person, depending on the time of year and the world we live in. But get involved. Go say hi. Professionals, part of growing as a professional is learning how to mentor and coach. And guess what? You want to be mentored and coached. And if they know that you know that, and they know that you're interested in their organization, now you have an advocate on the inside. So that is a really, really powerful way to get connected to opportunities that might not otherwise be available.
Tiffany, I know when people start at GE, you have a program that allows them to find the right fit. I think that's one of the things that's so overwhelming for students is, how do I know this is the right company, or this is the right role, or where am I going to get placed? Can you talk a little bit about what some companies are doing to make sure that students find the right fit?
So the GE Healthcare has a few programs. So they're known for their Edison Engineering Development Program, excuse me, which started in 1922, I found out, which is for engineering. So it focuses on electrical engineering, mechanical, software engineering, you know, across the gambit. And we have the Digital Technology Leadership Program. And what those programs do is they place you in a role, usually 6-month to 8-month rotations, where you're changing your role each time. And you go to different areas, typically in the company, different teams. And through that, you can learn, okay, yeah, this isn't my strong suit. So for instance, I had a couple DTLPs that were in my space. One already had program management. So they understood the role of a Scrum Master in the Agile framework. They had software engineering background. They also did 6 months in a security space. So they understood risk and all of the things around closing out open audit issues. So it's like these different positions that they were in, as well as reporting. So some of them had to create reporting tools and dashboards. Through that program, at the end, they determined whether or not they wanted to stay in the last rotation, or if they knew that, no, I really want to be a program manager. They had that opportunity, but in the process, they also got some professional development and networking out of it. They also took leadership courses, but they also had all these touches of individuals that they knew across the organization that they could reach back to. So when I have security questions, I can talk to one of the DTLPs on my team because they worked in that area, so I can get a connection through them because they've been here longer than me. But again, I think it builds their confidence as well, because if you can adjust, literally change a job every 6 to 8 months and hit the ground running and produce something that's tangible, that's used by the organization, how confident do you feel at the end of that, that you can now start your career?
That's awesome. One of the things I think we've heard from a lot of students is that they aren't actually aware of the higher education assets that we have in Milwaukee. They know of schools, but they don't really understand what's been built out at those schools. And so I want to highlight a few of the things that I don't know that all students would even know exist in the greater Milwaukee region. We talked a little bit about, Marie, you did a really good job of talking about the Connected Systems Institute. And that exists at the UWM and is a partnership with Rockwell. Did you want to add anything in terms of why students should care about the Connected Systems Institute when thinking about school in Milwaukee?
Gosh, Lori, you're putting me on the spot. No, but the Connected Systems Institute is really, it's world class, and it mimics an actual manufacturing line. It has, both dry and wet, fills. It's a complete test bed. It offers the digital twin. So a digital twin is just like it sounds, a digital twin of an actual physical manufacturing component. And so, like I said, it has the tools and the technology that mirror what is an industry, that mirrors what we sell and provide to our customers. In addition to the actual physical test bed, there will be courses, there will be hands-on learning opportunities, and it's really going to be for students and professionals at all levels. So, undergrad, PhD students at Milwaukee will have access to it, as well as industry professionals. There was, with COVID and the disruption to the supply chain, there was a little bit of a delay in getting it up and running. I believe it was supposed to have been up in July. I think it is finished now, here at the end of the year. But I think we're going to hear, I hope and think we're going to hear more of it and how students are able to leverage it. And that's the type of thing, to kind of the point I made, to the point Drew made, is if you participated in something at the Connected Systems Institute, a workshop or took a class, don't just say that you did it. Outline exactly what it is that you were able to accomplish, what problem you solved, what you learned from it. That's going to set you apart, when you're applying for an internship or a role, particularly at Rockwell, it makes a lot of sense for us. But don't just say you did it, highlight what about it, what did you learn, and how can that be applied?
And Drew, Northwestern Mutual has a partnership with both Marquette and UWM in terms of the Data Science Institute. Do you want to talk a little bit about what kind of a relationship you have with those institutions around data science?
Yeah, so Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute was started a couple years back. And the idea is that when you're learning and you can learn with real problems, the learning becomes more deep, and the way that we problem solve becomes sort of new because you've got those diverse minds looking at it. So Northwestern Mutual partnered with Marquette and UW-Milwaukee to form the NMDSI, because technologists love to throw around acronyms. And they're working on solving problems. So they've got funding for data science programs, because the reality is, as it's been talked about, data is a thing and people have tons of it and are just trying to figure out how to use it. What can we learn from it? What can we do with it? How can we be proactive instead of reactive? And the Data Science Institute's purpose is to help solve problems, create that educational opportunity and the funding for those programs to really thrive, and build that pipeline of data talent that everyone needs, not just Northwestern Mutual. I'm sure Rockwell and GE are hiring data scientists as fast as they can, because the world generates data and more every day, and we got to figure out what does it tell us and how do we react and do something with it. And so the NMDSI is one of the ways Northwestern Mutual is investing in the Milwaukee community to help, build that pipeline.
And one of the other assets in the region is Milwaukee School of Engineering. You've heard a lot on this call about problem-based work, the need to be able to apply what you're learning in the classroom. I hope that if nothing else, you're thinking about not necessarily what you want to study, but how you're going to be able to apply what you're studying. Milwaukee School of Engineering they have the first undergraduate program in computer science that's focused on AI, artificial intelligence. So any student that goes through that program is going to be exposed to artificial intelligence classes, machine learning classes, data science classes, and it's an applied learning model where there's problems along the way. So I just want to make sure to let you know about that as an opportunity as well. Did I miss any other higher ed? Please let me know. I know, Drew, you have one other one I think that you want to highlight.
I am a huge advocate for the technical college system. Having been a former full-time faculty in Waukesha and knowing and meeting faculty across the state and hearing what Gateway did when Foxconn came into place for supply chain, the faculty in those technical colleges, for a majority, come from doing. So it is very much what Laura was mentioning MSOE does as well, where it's that real world focus. And my favorite part about the technical college programs is that you can start on day one doing what you think you want to do and learn really fast if it is what you think it is or not, and then pivot if you need to. It's also a really great way to start, get a job, and then find that first role and then continue your education, because the reality about technology and just the world in general is you never stop learning. So that's a great option. The other thing that's newer from the state of Wisconsin is apprenticeships in tech, whether that's application development, data, security. Those are all apprenticeship opportunities that are now available. So another aspect and avenue to get into tech without your traditional go for a bachelor's degree.
And I really want to reinforce that, because one of the things that we didn't have a chance to get into is, what do you do if you don't go to college? There's so many different things that you can choose to go into. And if you choose, let's say, not to complete a degree, or you are unable to complete a degree because life just got in the way, I want you to think about apprenticeships down the road, because you do not need a college degree to seek an employer sponsor for a tech apprenticeship. And just like Drew said, there's tech apprenticeships in a variety of different technical programs. So I just want to make sure you know about that. I don't know if I know we're at the end of our time. I just wanted to see, Renee, did you have anything that you wanted to add in terms of any kind of questions or any other comments that are coming in through the chat?
Yep, just one quick question about mentorship. Does anyone have any tips on what is one of the best ways or options for finding a mentor?
Drew, do you want to take that one?
Sure. There's a number of ways. The Commons ran a program this summer for interns that they were connected with industry mentors. One of the ways would be to sort of reach out to someone who's doing a role that you're interested in and ask for their time, especially in a virtual world that can be a lot more varied than it used to be. Make sure you come with why you want to reach out to them, though, or what you're looking to understand, because that helps frame the conversation. But the best way, if I were to recommend one, would be, again, networking. Attending those virtual React.js has groups, JS Milwaukee, Big Data Milwaukee, Angular, JavaScript. Pick your tech stack. There's a nerd group out there for you to join and learn from. And those would be really great areas to strike up a conversation and ask, how did you get there? I'd love to know more. Would you be willing to help me get there?
Or subscribe to the newsletter at www.milwaukeetech.org, and we will connect you to resources in the greater Milwaukee region that can help you. So thank you so much for being part of this, and I hope you all have a great night.